Welcome to our panel, Building a Credibly Sustainable Travel Industry Together. I'm Kate Heine. I am the Vice President of Sustainability for Booking Holdings. While I'm new to the travel industry, just a couple of months, I'm not new to sustainability, so I've been in the retail, consumer goods, and fashion sector for the past number of years. What I found interesting is how much similarity we have on sustainability topics, and this building a credible industry together is one of those areas where there's a lot of similarities and overlap. At Booking, we know from our latest consumer research that 76% of travelers say they want to travel more sustainably in the next 12 months. 76%. That's up 15% from 2021. Now, we also see that over half of our travelers tell us that they don't believe there are enough sustainable options for them. So making it easier for them to make the choices that they say they want to make is central for all of us in the industry, but also at Booking, in order to build a more sustainable travel industry. How we communicate the various efforts that are already present, as many of you know, and you have efforts that are present in the industry, and make it easier for travelers to find those more sustainable options is a big focus for Booking.com and is one in which we can all speak together about. How can we come together to provide our customers what they're looking for in a credible and meaningful manner? To discuss the topic, we have a panel of guests that are spanning accommodations, digital travel, and sustainability. So please join me in welcoming our panelists. Hello and welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us. So today we are joined by Booking.com's own head of sustainability, Daniel Da Silva, followed by Maureen Hergenrother, the Director for Social and Environmental Impact at Evolve, and Randy Durbin, the CEO of the Global Sustainable Tourism Council. And maybe you could just say one sentence or two sentences about your organization. Randy, we can start with you.
Yeah, so GSTC is a nonprofit organization created by UN agencies, United Nations Environmental Program and UNWTO, to manage global standards for sustainability. And we do that in a very highly inclusive process, so the GSTC criteria are considered the go-to standard applied by national governments, businesses, Booking.com. Anybody who really studies the matter finds us because our standards really define what we mean by sustainability. And they include not just environmental issues, but social issues, cultural issues. DEI is in there, and governance. So that's who we are.
Thank you. Maureen?
And I'm from Evolve, which is North America's fastest growing vacation rental network. We have nearly 30,000 properties and 750 destinations. I oversee not only sustainability, but also philanthropy, diversity, equity, and inclusion at Evolve. So we look at it from a very holistic level.
Thank you. And Danielle?
As Kate said, I lead sustainability for Booking.com, so I look after the teams that are responsible for not only our operations, our carbon targets, how we actually operate our business, but also how we engage the industry, our travelers, and our partners on the topic of sustainability.
Thank you. So I'm going to start maybe with a little bit of a bigger picture. Let's talk about some of the challenges that the industry faces, as well as the opportunities that we have to create long-lasting systemic change and embed sustainability into the industry for the future, and possibly even address some of these customer challenges that I've just spoke about. Randy, maybe you can start us off.
Challenges? On sustainability, first of all, I would say confusion. There's not agreement on what sustainability means. Society is not aware, business is not aware, and that's why these UN agencies created us to define it, and we do that with a very inclusive process. So we need to get the word out better, and I think that because we have an existential crisis on climate change punching us in the face, society finally gets that. And plastics, we're putting a credit card's worth amount of plastic in our body every week. Society's starting to get that. But those things are getting in the way of a holistic view of sustainability. So we've got to tackle a lot of issues, and we have to tackle them sooner. And people just don't understand really what it is we mean. So I'd put confusion as the top of the list of challenges.
I think that makes sense. I think that's something that we've heard a lot about, and I think we will come back to as a theme. Danielle, we do know that travelers want to travel more. They say they want to have more sustainable choices. Can you tell us also a little bit about some of the barriers? I anticipate maybe confusion might be in there, but some of the barriers that the research you've seen has shown.
Yeah, absolutely. So every year we do research with over 30,000 travelers on their intent and understanding and barriers to travel more sustainably. And you've heard now, I think several times from Femi and Kate, that the intent for traveling more sustainably is of course rising. And we've seen that for years. But what we're also seeing from our travelers is that the barriers are kind of staying the same. Mm-hmm. So confusion is certainly one of them. I think Randy hits that right on. I think Kate, earlier you mentioned that travelers are finding it difficult to find sustainable options. That I think is a bit of an umbrella barrier, because confusion might be part of that, because they don't know what a sustainable travel option is. It could be that they have a perception about what sustainable travel is that goes against what they think they want for their trip. So for instance, we've heard many people tell us that they don't want to book a sustainable accommodation because it will be too luxury for them. Or they don't want to book a sustainable accommodation because it won't be luxury enough, which is a really interesting dynamic. Or that there won't be something available for a family or in the destination that they're looking for, which of course is not the case, because there are these options for any need that a traveler may have, but making sure that they know what those options are and where they can find them. And then particularly in the economic climate we're in right now, cost is also a barrier, because the perception is that sustainable options are more expensive, and cost is something that's on the mind of travelers at the moment. So how do we make sure that they don't feel that they are sacrificing their needs, whether it's a cost need or a traveler need for the sake of sustainability? And I think on the other side, that's all about the traveler, but to actually make it easier for travelers to have more sustainable choices or feel that they can make those choices, we also talked to our partners, our accommodation partners, to understand what are the barriers you're facing. Because how can it be easier for travelers to travel more sustainably if it's not easier for our partners to become more sustainable or showcase that information to them? And so that was really interesting for us to listen to and understand, because the key barriers we saw from our accommodation partners were that while they are already taking action on sustainability, they maybe don't yet have a certification. And I think there were some reasons for that, because the number of properties that have third-party certifications is still quite small. Or they felt that if they had sustainability actions in place, they didn't know how to showcase that to the customer, because maybe the customer in their mind doesn't engage with that information very well. So there's a real need to think through how we actually display that information to customers. And the fear of greenwashing as well. So how do partners make sure that they're presenting this information credibly, and it's not going to raise the alarms of the travelers who are consuming that information? And finally, I swear, the last piece is also about cost, because we've just gone through a very difficult time. So the idea of investing in something that you don't know exactly what the return is for you and your business, we hear that very much. And so I think it's about making clear the ROI on these efforts, understanding not only the operational efficiencies that come from sustainability efforts, but also what that can do for your business and your interaction with travelers. So I think there's a need for some alignment, a need for further education, information, and some things for us to overcome still.
And I'll just add to that, consistency. So one of the challenges we see is a sustainable stay in a hotel might look very different than a vacation rental. And I think that's where the alignment and partnership that we'll continue to talk about is going to come in. So it's that complexity, it's that cost, but it's also really the consistency and drilling it down to the guest experience.
Yeah. Please.
Could I just go back to my point of confusion to build upon something Danielle just said about certification? We found that in Europe in particular, about 30 years ago, there started being entities calling certification for hotels. And honestly, one of the reasons that UN created us was not to just create global standards, but to create order out of this chaos. And what we found is that every other sector in the world, when they certify something for health, safety, whatever, they follow ISO standards for what certification means. Hospitality and travel and tourism just ignored that world. Seriously. And all these entities crept up and just called themselves a certification body. And so we've analyzed and looked at them and said, you're not a certification body. You don't separate coaching to improvement from giving the badge and the award. So we've been working now with Booking for 6 or 7 years, helping with the foundational background and logic behind the badges that they've created. But our work generally has found that, so this is a critical issue for you to understand, is that you may have assumptions based on what you've seen in the marketplace that's frankly not very good. And so we're really trying to sort that out, and Booking is an important part of that.
Yeah, I like that point, and I think actually maybe I want to build a little bit on the credibility and the displaying of information point here, because we do know that credibility is really central to the success for sustainability. You talked about greenwashing. We know that we've seen a lot of questions about credibility coming up. And customers have said time and again, travelers, that they want simple, comparable, and credible sustainability information. And I think this is just to say also not unique to the travel industry. That is a very consistent finding, that is what, and probably as individuals, I would wager many of you are looking for, as am I. Simple, comparable, credible information. But Maureen, I'd like to maybe ask you a little bit. How does Evolve approach embedding sustainability into your business? And what about homeowners? You have a little bit of a different model, as you introduced.
We do, and really the key word there to building credibility is embedding it as part of our business model. So we've taken a step back rather than just tactically executing on all the things in sustainability that we need to get our homeowners to do, and thought about what is our broader social responsibility statement, mission. And for us, it's all about building trust as well. So our vision statement at Evolve is to be the most trusted. And so we really look at it as trust work. And so in doing that, we built a social responsibility framework that extends our goal to extend welcome and hospitality to guests out into the world. So we look at building welcome within communities through our philanthropy, giving 1% of bookings back to philanthropy. Volunteerism, partnering with small businesses, partnering with nonprofits that are making homes healthier, safe, accessible, and greener. Also looking at it from making sure guests feel welcome through our diversity, equity, inclusion initiatives and our teammates. And then in sustainability, looking at it from how can we build a more welcoming environment for future generations. And so continuing to think through what is our narrative. And so as we go out and work with our homeowners and provide information and build the business case for sustainability, it's not just a one-off that we're doing, it's part of our bigger picture, and it's a natural extension of our business. And we're consistently looking at the things that we're doing every day and say, how does this fit in to our social responsibility model? I think another thing is to think about is narrowing your focus. So sustainability and even saying we're going to build a more welcoming environment for the world is a big, hairy, audacious goal. So we have looked at the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals and selected those to align to our social responsibility. We've picked responsible consumption for sustainability, which is something every single day you can make choices to be a more responsible consumer. And then in addition to that, where it helps support our credibility is one of the things that you can do often in a personal relationship to break trust is be self-serving. And so ensuring that we at Evolve are not just being self-serving, we want to meet the regulations, we want the sustainable travel market share, but also we want to be part of the bigger picture and what the world is doing by aligning with the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. So having a higher purpose gives us that ability to then go out to our homeowners and guests and build upon that narrative.
Yeah, thank you for that. I think it's interesting and important to hear about kind of having that higher kind of commitment and how you want to be able to build the business model and embed it, and that creates the credibility. I think a lot of organizations have the option to do that. But I also think we have a little bit of an increase in requirement. And so, Randy, maybe maybe you can talk a little bit about how can the industry start leveling up on sustainability as legislation increases and this actually becomes much more of a requirement. Can you offer some insights there?
Yeah, there's some movement in the world outside the United States. And I think Danielle and yourself, Kate, are more experts than I am on what's happening in the European Union. But there's legislation pending right now that will have indirect impacts here in the States, too. That they're looking to pass a couple of laws that will require third-party verification of any sustainability claim in any sector. I mean, that's heavy stuff. They want to sort out this madness, this confusion that I was talking about. We're working intensely in the country of Turkey with an incredibly progressive program. They have 22,000 hotels in the country. They have legally mandated every hotel in the country must be certified to our scheme by 2030. And they have to go in stages. So by the end of this year, they have to comply with 30% of our standard. And then within 2 years after that, 70%. We're working intensely with them in building that program. And Singapore, a national program where they're subsidizing, but they've got mandates and where they're going. And we're seeing that happen around the world. Finally, the United States has somebody in the Department of Commerce that's working finally on policy at the national level in the U.S. But states or municipalities are looking at these issues. But I think we're going to see a wave of this coming. What's happening in countries like Turkey and Singapore, we're talking in Japan and many countries, and I think we're going to see it because society is slow to move. One point I want to make with this audience is that at point of purchase, the traveler is not thinking about sustainability. They're thinking price and what speaks to my self-identity of the hotel I buy, the destination I choose. But the satisfaction levels are now driving some demand as well. And you referenced, Kate, the survey that Booking has done, and Booking is really doing the best market research in the world on sustainable attitudes in the world, so we track that very carefully. The last round you did, another statistic that is very interesting to me is that 53% of global travelers from your survey said they get annoyed when the service provider is not green enough. Now, ladies and gentlemen, that has come out of nowhere. And I think it's very profound because we kind of fall asleep on this issue because they don't ask for it at point of purchase. But increasingly, they want it when they get there. And so the repeats, the referrals that are so critical to the marketing of travel and tourism, we see it in the satisfaction levels. So we're going to have market demand as well, but to this point, government is waking up to this and sorting it out for us.
We can hope. I think it's interesting you bring up that 53%, because I think it does speak a little bit to, and again, I can maybe just draw some parallels across a few different industries, is that sustainability is not often a reason for purchase, but it is a hygiene expectation. It is a baseline expectation, and that is what I think what you're even pointing to. We're seeing that expectation become more and more common. And I think that's, again, also in line with the rising regulation. These things come together, and the playing field needs to be leveled in order to be able to provide travelers what they're looking for.
And there's a big demographic shift. I mean, everywhere we go in the world, people 35 and under are angry. They want a better world, and they're ready to take action. I think if you just consider gay marriage in the United States, I mean, it wasn't going anywhere. And suddenly, 13 states, it seemed like overnight, it happened. That's because of a demographic shift. Younger people are cool with it, right? And everywhere we go on the planet, 35-year-olds and younger are ready for change. And I just think that 53% is very telling. It'll be very interesting to track that number on sustainability. And it'll be, but even if you're worried about, good food, when you go to the supermarket, do you read the label as much for your children as much as you want to? No, we're busy. So when we book on Booking.com, we're not thinking sustainability, but we want it.
Yeah. Maureen, do you have some thoughts on this, just, kind of being largely North American focused, but seeing that trend that's coming?
Yeah, I think it's interesting for us, especially because we mentioned, right, you're not necessarily going to pay more for it up front, but there's that expectation. So with us, it's really focusing too about building the business case with our property and homeowners on that kind of back-end payoff that maybe we're not going to see up front. And, I think in the US it's interesting in that we are seeing that movement toward what are those regulations going to be. We know with the SEC that climate disclosures are going to start to be required, so we're seeing steps in that way. We're also seeing more incentives, which is something that's actually really helpful for us. So the Inflation Reduction Act that was passed last fall gives many more incentives to just individual homeowners on clean energy. And so we're seeing that movement, but there's still just so much work to be done, I think, in the US, and we're light years behind many other nations. But it's wonderful that organizations like Booking has been thinking through it and has some models in place that we don't have to recreate the wheel. We can partner with Booking on their certifications that they work with and their process, and hopefully bring more of that to North America.
That's a beautiful segue to my next question. Thank you. Because we do know that accommodations and all of us are at different stages in our sustainability journey, and that it is a journey, and that it is about progress and not perfection, and that this is not something that we should shy away from with travelers. Travelers are looking for the transparency in where you are in order to build that credibility and understand and trust. And so that's fundamental. Danielle, how does the Travel Sustainable program support this?
Yeah, just maybe for my own barometer here, aside from Femi's opening remarks, how many people in the room are familiar with the Travel Sustainable program for accommodations? Just by a show of hands. Okay, that's wonderful. That's such a big increase from last year, so that's really great to see. But the Travel Sustainable program for accommodations, which we launched in November 2021, is our way of recognizing the sustainable actions that properties are taking from early on in a sustainability journey all the way through to certification. So leveraging the work that Randy and GSTC have done to identify these certifications that are really the gold standard. And the idea behind the program, I would say there are a few fundamental pillars. The first is to recognize that properties who are taking action already should be able to display that to travelers and have some recognition for the steps that they're taking along a pathway to certification. So just a couple months ago, that really came to life by releasing levels in the program. So like chili peppers on a menu, we have leaves on a property to really showcase the level of sustainability. And so whether or not you have already been able to achieve a certification, you can already start to display the information and the actions that you're taking. On the consumer side, it of course allows them to make a more informed decision and identify properties that align with their values, but there's an educational element as well, because it's not just the label, but it actually shows them all of the actions that are being taken to achieve that label. So they can start to understand what are the most important topics for an accommodation to be acting in a sustainable manner and operating in a sustainable manner. The other piece that's really wonderful is that the idea here is that we start to align with the industry. And so this is a framework that we've developed as part of the Travelist Coalition, which has peers like Expedia and Google, TripAdvisor, Trip.com, and several others, with the intention of aligning this across the industry. And most recently, we released the Travel Sustainable program on our sister brands, Priceline, Agoda, and Kayak, so that there is this consistency in this broader framework, and that we really create this pathway. And then the final element of this program is we now have over 400,000 properties that have a Travel Sustainable label, but we have 1.5 million properties that have shared with us what they're doing on sustainability. So that is a huge opportunity to recognize that there are many of you that have started but are not yet at a level to be recognized. So how can we look into those insights and figure out what those blockers are? Is it education? Is it systemic in your destination? Because maybe infrastructure is not available, or perhaps it's leveraging some of these subsidies or incentives that the government is offering. And so we can really start to provide the tools, or at least have the dialogue to look at how do we bring those 800,000 or 900,000 properties that have started actually onto a recognition and towards certification in the future.
Can you maybe say just a couple sentences about, I think that was a great description of the program. With Randy's comments about, kind of the rise in regulation and legislation, how is Booking kind of keeping an eye on that or thinking about the program in that context?
Yeah, absolutely. Right now, a lot of the regulation is focused on how we communicate sustainability information to consumers, and Randy already mentioned that third-party verification is key to that. So that's something that we, over the next few months and year, need to further incorporate into the program and better understand how we can verify all the information on sustainability at scale. That will definitely be a collaborative process. We had a wonderful workshop actually on Tuesday to discuss with some partners how to really get into the complexities of verifying that quantity of information in a way that allows us to continue to have scalable impact, but also satisfy the needs of the regulation and making sure that we're communicating effectively to consumers. So definitely more on that in the coming year, and an ask, I guess, to you all to collaborate with us on solving that challenge.
Yeah. So going back to the journey a little bit, thank you for that. Maureen, how does Evolve support its homeowners on their sustainability journeys?
So we have nearly 30,000 of them. So it's definitely a challenge when we think about influencing homeowners to come along on this journey, right? We don't necessarily own those properties. We play a role, but don't control everything that happens. So there's that challenge for sure. And where we've really started is the education piece. So both internally with our own teammates, making sure that they are able to speak to it, understand the importance, and that we're walking the walk as a company. And then with owners, it's really about continuing to build that business case. So leveraging some of the research that Booking has done, looking into what are those incentives. It can actually save you money in a lot of ways and put money in your pocket with tax credits. Also demonstrating, that demand in the market that's out there. And then I think from a practical approach is looking at different partnerships that make access to more sustainable practices accessible. So what products and services can we partner and put those in the hands of our homeowners? Everything is about convenience, and sustainability is one that folks often shy away from because it seems like a lot of work. Oh, I have to remodel my whole home, or I need to get solar panels. But if we can help our owners see just the small changes, that can make a big difference. And then I think too, understanding and helping our owners also understand that at the end of the day, at its core, sustainability is about behavior change. And so we can install low flow shower heads, but if the guest is still leaving the shower on while they're brushing their teeth and getting dressed and all of that, we haven't necessarily done our job well. So I think it's educating on all those levels, and on the guest side too, putting education out there about how to be a more sustainable traveler and guest.
I love that. Every little step counts. Mm-hmm. Every bit matters. So this has been very helpful. I think what I'm hearing is there's a lot of work to do. There's a lot of work that we can do together, but there's also a long runway, right? This is a journey. We need to be able to build towards that and share the progress and share where you are on the journey in order to be credible. So the last question, maybe just we'll do a round robin here. I'll start with you, Randy, fair warning. What comes next? What would you like to see in the coming year with regards to the industry's sustainability efforts?
But I think industry needs to reduce the clutter and confusion of messaging. And what we're doing with industry is trying to convey to them that when you purchase something on a regular basis, you have power. And we've modeled what we do after successful programs in other sectors. If you think about Kleenex tissues and Scott toilet tissue, Kimberly-Clark, the giant that produces and distributes those paper products, they were created in 1993 and they went nowhere for about 7 or 8 years until Kimberly-Clark came and said, we want to put, this eco label on our products. And then their competitors followed suit. So we've been working on that model. And so we talked to Hilton. Hilton is a GSDC member. Their Light Stay program is now using our standard, which aligns with what Booking is doing. So getting that alignment of industry is extremely important. So we do speak a common language and we work towards common goals. But they're even still kind of slow to move because the franchise model in the hotel industry I see as a barrier to sustainability. I mean, maybe you're all aware of this, but most of the big hotel brands, they don't own any properties anymore. They used to own 20%, and now they own mostly zero. The owners don't have to use the sustainability. Only Hilton has it in their brand dimension that the owner has to follow their sustainability policy. Most other brands, they don't have to. So Wyndham has a lovely program, and 1.5% of hotels need to follow it. So what we're trying to get at is the power of purchasing. So we're talking to the business travel community. Leisure travel is so fragmented, it's hard to talk to. We're making tremendous progress. American Express GBT is the travel agent for Google and 1/3 of the Fortune 500 companies, and there's 4 major players, and we're getting success in getting them to show preferential contracting of hotels, and they're very receptive to that. And so the point here is that those kinds of movements in, the power of purchasing and the contracting, and it's based on the same framework Booking is used on the distribution side. That's our great hope, and that's how we reduce the confusion, is that we have a systematic approach. So we're working at from all these angles. We're talking to government, we're talking to buyers of hotel space, we're talking to buyers of tour operator space. Some of you may have heard Peter Olwin yesterday of TUI Amusement. It's a large company that owns a lot of destination management companies around the world. They're aligned with our system. And that harmony of approach is essential. Not that we all have to act the same as brands, but having a shared methodology. And I have to say one more thing to applaud what you're doing at Booking. Booking.com is a signatory to an organization called Panelist. Prince Harry used the power of his celebrity, and Booking happily to us is sharing methodology with Trip.com and with TripAdvisor and with Expedia, because we have to work non-competitively to move sustainability. So across all these lines, distribution, purchasing, operations of the hotels themselves, we've got to get aligned because it's a bloody mess, and we're making progress, but I would say we're at the beginning of the beginning in terms of that cohesion.
Yeah, we are a mess. Not alone, though, in that. But I'm hearing simplicity and pre-competitive work to be done. So thank you. I appreciate that. Maureen?
Yeah, I would say exactly some of the same things that Randy said. Also, the harmony piece, I think that is a key word for me in this. And I would love to continue to see more conversations. I think even just in the last few days, hearing more, seeing more about it, the visibility is huge. There are still many folks out there that are skeptical, not sure if they want to come along on the journey, and the continued conversation, visibility, and continued alignment and partnership in a non-competitive way is what we need to deliver the best sustainable guest experience. When I mentioned earlier the consistency piece, and I think that alignment will be key and continue to build that trust and credibility with our travelers if there's more consistency and partnership across all of us.
Great, thank you. And Danielle?
Yes, yes, and to what's been mentioned here previously, and I think from us directly to you, continue to give us that feedback, continue to work with us on these topics, because the idea of the program that we have is to really support our partners towards becoming more sustainable, whether it's to meet the needs of our travelers, to meet the needs of regulations, and make sure that we're approaching sustainability as an industry in the best way that we can. This piece around how we communicate and make sure that the information we are gathering and then providing to travelers is key in the coming couple of years. And so really how we can work together on that to make sure that we build a process that is really scalable for the industry is what I like to see in the coming year. And we will be engaging more on it. So I'm looking forward to it.
I love this. So we're hearing simple, harmonized, scalable, pre-competitive alignment. It's a big year ahead. Thank you so much for your insights and your time today. So please join me in saying thank you to our panelists.